to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I'm Jackie, and I decided I'm going to do one more video since our family is not coming until tonight, probably late, which unfortunately I have to work tomorrow, so I will not even I'll get 2.5 days with the family. I mean, I don't know how long my sister and her family are going to stay, but hopefully a little bit longer, so I'll get a little bit more time with them. But I am going to work the next day and the day after that, after Thanksgiving. But anyway, I'm not going to complain about that. I'm making a video that is a Thanksgiving tag. I was just thinking about this and I figured let me go ahead and do one for you guys in case you're interested. And I found one that was created 3 years ago, and Madison Goodyear is the person who created it. This is the name of her channel. She created the tag 3 years ago, like I said. So I will post the link to her video in the description box below. But like most Thanksgiving tags, it's basically listing all the ingredients of a Thanksgiving meal, like all the stuff that's usually on the Thanksgiving table that people like to eat. And gives you prompts to, and you gotta pick out, of course, a book that represents those prompts. Okay, so here we go. Question number one, or prompt number one, is mashed potatoes, which I actually love. I mean, I would be fine even if it didn't have gravy on it. I could just eat them plain. I know a lot of people think they're bland, but I really like them, especially when they have garlic in them. I love garlic, and particularly when people use the red potatoes and mash those. I really like the way those taste. The garlic and mixed with the rosemary. Those are my favorite kinds. Sometimes when there's like a little bit of butter in there or sour cream mixed in, like, kind of like how you do a baked potato, except for it's the mashed ones. But anyway, so the question is the crowd pleaser, because she's also a fan of mashed potatoes. And the one I chose for that prompt is Pride and Prejudice. It is the one book that if you haven't read all of Jane Austen's novels, you've at least read this one, or you've at least watched an adaptation of this one. Everyone recommends this as a classic to read. It is the go-to. It is, in a way, it invented, I mean, I'm sure there are books before it, but it made the trope of the hate to love very popular. I mean, everyone loves the whole Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet romance. It's just so fun, and it's just, everyone loves to look at and criticize Miss Bennet and how, how determined she is to get her girls married off, knowing that if they don't get married, they're gonna have nothing, because only the male heir can get their money and their house and everything, and fortunately they have no brother, so it goes to this male cousin who's kind of boring and self-righteous and not a great guy. He's kind of insufferable, and it has a lot of great humor and which, I mean, although I do wonder if, unless you are familiar with how the society was during this time period the book is set, the humor might not register. But I mean, it's so charming. It's so much fun. I mean, this book could be used for some of the other prompts as well, but I'm choosing it for this prompt, a crowd pleaser, because it's so much fun, and it's just a great story, and it's really entertaining. It's not action packed or anything. I mean, I can see where some people might get bored with a Jane Austen novel, but I think the dynamics of the characters is just, I think that's what makes this so entertaining and witty and just such a page turner. I mean, like I said, it's not action packed. It's not super exciting. A lot of times they're just walking, going to balls, walking out, having, conversations in their homes, but it's more than, it's not just that kind of, it's not that meant to be that kind of story. It's meant to be it's a fun romance. and that's clean. That, and doesn't have a, and of course, because it was a really long time ago, it doesn't have a lot of sex. It doesn't have sexy times, but or what we consider sexy nowadays. But anyways, I think this is a great book. I think and I know a lot of people love this book. So this is my crowd pleaser, my mashed potatoes. Okay. Next is turkey, a must-read classic. Now, I am not the biggest fan of turkey. I don't mind it. Like, I will eat it on Thanksgiving, but it has to have, like, the gravy on it, and it has to be the dark meat. Or if it's not, if I don't get the dark meat, because oftentimes the dark meat is that big leg piece, or, and so as long as I put gravy, it's always the thing we have, the last the longest as far as leftovers are concerned. I don't, like I said, I don't hate it. I'm not completely disgusted by turkey. I'll still eat it. I mean, there were times when I would get the turkey from the deli and eat that on the sandwiches, but it's not my I prefer ham. And actually, for this year, and I think we did this last year too. We got a smaller turkey and got ham as well, in case other people, because my mom doesn't like turkey as much either. And and then, but I feel like it's a staple of Thanksgiving, even though it's a food that the Pilgrims would not have eaten. And I think, I think they would have eaten venison or fish or something, and not necessarily turkey. But anyway, and I just realized I committed probably a faux pas in the book, in the YouTube, by commenting on a 3-year-old video. That's funny. Like, I left a comment on our video, and then I realized, and then now I've just realized it's a 3-year-old video. There's no way she's gonna see it. And there was a channel I watched where they said that's like, you just don't, in that person's mind, coming on a 3-year-old video, you shouldn't do that, because it's like, but anyway, but the one I picked for this is something that I do love, and that is A Christmas Carol. Or, well, in this case, this is A Christmas Carol along with The Chimes and The Haunted Man by Dickens. And now, granted, Dickens is not for everybody. I know he can be very verbose and wordy, and sometimes people struggle with his writing style and his characters. Like, some people prefer, like, often he's compared to Trollope, and a lot of people prefer Trollope because Trollope is his characters are more realistic, while Dickens' characters, in a negative sense, they could be perceived as caricatures. But for me personally, I love his characters. That's what I love about his work and his characters in this world that he's created that's almost fantastical in its own way, even though there's no magic or dragons or anything. But it still has a whimsy to it, has a fantasy feeling to it. And I picked A Christmas Carol because, one, we're talking about Thanksgiving. So I feel like A Christmas Carol is a book you gotta read, like, around Christmas time, and it's a classic. Again, just like Pride and Prejudice, even if you have not read it, you're familiar with it because they have so many adaptations of it. Most people's favorite is The Muppets Christmas Carol. I personally like A Christmas Carol, A Christmas Carol the musical with Kelsey Grammer. There's Disney just did one that's with Jim Carrey voicing Scrooge and one of the ghosts, I think, and it's very CGI. It's the same people. I think it's the same as the Polar Express, I think. There was the original black and white one. That might have been the first adaptation. There was Hallmark has done their fair share of versions of A Christmas Carol. Like, there was one that was a country music star producer one, and then I remember there was another one years ago with, I think it was, I cannot remember the actress's name. I can't think of it, but that might have been a Lifetime one. But there are so many versions of Christmas Carol, so even if you have never read the story, you have seen some kind of adaptation. But this is such a, and so it's such a, everyone watches it at least once. And I think a lot of people watch it every year, whichever adaptation. But the book is so good. There's so much more detail. Like, there's this whole part where the ghost of Christmas, I think it's present, takes, Scrooge to you watch these different groups of people, not just the main characters of the story, like his nephew and the Cratchit family, but also other people, and see what other people do for Christmas. And so, and you don't see that in adaptations, and then there's also like the message is so beautiful and hopeful, and it's a very cozy read. I mean, this is another one that could answer one of the other questions as well for me, but I picked a different book for that one. I just feel like it's something you gotta, if you don't read it, at least watch it. You should at least watch it next to It's a Wonderful Life. But this is such a such a great book with, like I said, with a beautiful message, and I think it's worth reading, attempting to read, at least if you if you like Charles Dickens. This is one of the ones I think you should read, and it's not super long, and like I said, if you've only seen the adaptation, then you're familiar with the story. So like there are things that that aren't in adaptations that are only found in the short story, in the novella, but at least you would be familiar with the plot. And granted, if you just can't get past Charles Dickens' writing, then that's fine. But I think if you loved A Christmas Carol, one of the adaptations, then try reading the book and the novella. Like I said, it's a novella, so it's not that long. But it's so great, and I definitely think it's a must-read classic. Okay, and then we have Can't Get Enough of It, and Madison Goodyear picked a trope, so I'm gonna pick a trope. Actually, I'm picking two. I couldn't decide. And funnily enough, this also, I feel like I consume these tropes more in movies and TV shows than in books. But I just love them. First of all, we have I love the story when it's a male main character. He forms a fatherly bond towards a young child character, particularly a little girl. Like, like All Dogs Good. I just watched a video talking, which I'm not even finished with the video. It's a very long video. It's kind of, going over the history and kind of a retrospective on this movie, but in its sequel. But All Dogs Go to Heaven, the relationship between the little girl Anne Marie and Charlie Barkin the dog. I just love that relationship. It makes my heart melt, and oftentimes I even prefer that over a love story, or a romantic love story, because that's a love story too. Or, like, one of the reasons why I love Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey, is because of the story between, and it's a little different, but it doesn't really apply to the trope. It's not exactly the trope, but the relationship between the pets, Chance, Shadow, and Sassy, to their owners, the humans. That one makes me cry. But the sequel, I've seen it and I like it. I think it's a cute, fun story, everything. I mean, it would have been fine without it. The first movie would have been fine without it if it didn't exist, but but it wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. But that one had a romantic story in it, but it also had the story between Chance and his human in it as well. But I do want to read more books with this trope in it. I feel like like I said, I feel like I consume that trope more in movies and TV shows than in books. I can't even have an example off the top of my head of that kind of relationship dynamic. But I guess I know people don't want to talk about Harry Potter because of J.K. Rowling. She's a horrible person. But the relationship between Harry and the various father figures in his life are great, and they're the best example I can come off the top of my head. I think he has a lot of great father figure. I could probably come with a better example, especially because I know how people feel about the author of Harry Potter. But I'm trying. I can't. sorry, I can't think of it. That's the best I can come up with. But um and then also I love stories between about siblings, complicated, messy sibling relationship. Like I just read this horror book, Listen to Your Sister, and that's such a hard, their parents, these three siblings, their parents were deadbeats, kind of abandoned them essentially. So the sister has been forced to grow up real quickly and, be a mother to her younger brothers. And it is such a messy relationship because, they love their sister, want to protect her, but they also rebel against her, and they kind of miss when she was actually being a sister to them and not being a mother figure to them. That kind of relationship. And I do, despite the fact that Little Women feels a little saccharine to me, the actual book itself, like I love the movies. The movies are great. The two movie adaptations I've seen. I haven't seen the other ones, but the 2019 adaptation and then the one from 1994. But that is, despite having not read the whole book and feeling like the book is very saccharine, the relationship between the sisters is kind of endearing, very sweet. But sometimes it's a little like, I need a little bit more of that, I mean, I guess if I read the whole, more than half the story, I might have gotten a little bit more, but I kind of have mixed feelings about it, because I think it's really sweet and endearing, but it's also can be a little bit like, I need a little more of that messiness. There was actually a book that was written, I cannot remember what it's called, but I read it a couple years ago. It was a retelling of, it was kind of a loose retelling of Little Women, and it was really a fun take on it, a little, grittier, darker story, a little more heavier with the sibling dynamic, a little more messy of a dynamic. I'm trying to think of another sibling. I'm trying to think. I feel like the two sisters, Dorothea, and I can't remember what her sister's name is. That one was from Middlemarch. That one's a little complicated because again they just don't get each other, and they're not the only siblings that don't get each other, but end up coming. They have a moment of reconciliation and realizing, okay, I don't always understand you, but you're still my sister. I still love you and care about you and respect you. Like that, I really like that dynamic. And it's always a fun dynamic to read about. They're like, it's frustrating. Like, they just don't understand each other, and you see both sides and why they feel the way they feel. And Sense and Sensibility, the sisters in that story are really great. I probably should have stuck to this one instead, because like I said, the father figure plot, I don't have a lot of examples of that when in a book. I have more examples of that when in movies and TV shows. But I'm trying to think of another sister. I mean, in the other Bennett sister, we kind of get it a little bit, because I mean, of course, their sister is at the center of Pride and Prejudice, but Mary doesn't have a strong attachment to her sister. She loves them, but they just, again, that's their situation where they just don't get each other. They don't get her, Mary, especially Mary, and she just doesn't connect with them. But yeah, I love exploring sibling dynamics and siblings that just, they're really struggling to connect with each other, but there's still love between them, because they're siblings. I mean, the same thing with brothers and sisters, and with brothers too, and brothers and sisters. There was the second book. What is it called? There was that one book. There was another book I read a couple years ago. Now I can't even think of the author's name. It was very popular. Although he wrote it in the book. Oh, Marcus Zuzak. His book about the brothers, the group of brothers. I think it was him. I cannot remember what it's called, but this group of brothers that they kind of were poor, I think, and they have a very unconventional lifestyle. that was fun to read about. I really enjoyed reading about them, and it reminded me a little bit of my dad's family. So, well, actually, Shameless also reminded me a little bit of my dad's family, and he would agree. But I'm not gonna go diving too deep into that. But yeah, that was a fun to read about. I'm trying to. Sorry, my shelves are over there, and I also have shelves over there. I'm trying to think of other sibling. In the Dandelion Dynasty, in I think it's Wall of Storms, they have sibling dynamic in that one, but I haven't picked that one up, and I need to pick that one up soon. And then there's also in Song of Ice and Fire series, there is some sibling dynamics, like with the Arya and Sansa, who are complete opposites of each other. And then I know because I've watched the show, and the show's ahead of the book series, they do come together in the end. But they are complete opposites on the spectrum of the society and that. So yeah, there are. I would say that the trope I can't get enough of that I could use. I have read more books is probably the sibling relationship, especially sisters, and of course sisters for me because I am a sister. I'm a younger sister, and I just love those dynamic siblings. Okay, I'm gonna continue on because I want to be able to finish this video for you guys and I have to redo it all. So, cranberries, a palate cleanser, and I have a preference for the canned ones out of the sauce because I love the disc. I love cutting them, and I don't like getting the cranberries in my teeth. And the idea of all of a sudden tasting the little crunchy cranberry. I prefer just having the flavor of the cranberries and it being soft and all that. So, Madison asked that question. Asked us that question. Okay, this is palate cleanser. So I picked A Loy of Law, or in particular, so far this whole series. I'm not finished with it yet. I have one more book to go with the series, but I want to make sure I get to it soon. So either December or January, I'm going to read it. So this is a very action-packed series. It's the Wax and Wayne series. This is the first book, A Loy of Law. These guys are, kind of detectives. And someone's trying to take out the rich upper-class people of the society. So there's a lot of philosophical debates in this. But it's done in a fun, easy way. I picked this because, it's not a heavy book. And it's a very easy read. It's very fast-paced. It's very silly. Like, Wayne is a very funny character, but he can be annoying with some of his quirks. But it's really in the whole, there is romance in it, but it doesn't consume the plot. So the drama is more them trying to stop the antagonist. And I love the bond between Wax and Wayne. It's so much fun. So it's just a very fun, silly adventure story where there is action, there are stakes. I mean, it's not as low stakes as like Legends and Lattes low, but still, it's not as heavy as like his other, like his Stormlight Archives. Those books are that, or at least the first one is heavy. I started book 2, but I haven't because it's so long. And I was already dealing with the fact that I was reading The Wheel of Time, and finally I DNF that series because it's been a few years since I started reading book 4. I did attempt to read this earlier this year, but then I just put it down again, so I finally gave up on the series. But sometimes whenever people bring it up, I'm like, no, I don't want to hear about it, because I just don't want to feel guilty and regret my decision, because I need to let things go, and it was sitting there, and I didn't want to sit it there. I mean, yeah, there's a small chance that could have motivated picking it up if I had decided to, like, I'm not getting rid of it, but it's too late. I've already sent it to, I could rebuy it if I wanted to, but that would be, I'm not going to do that, so. But yeah, so this is my palate cleanser because it's just fun. It's an exciting series. The stakes are semi-high, but they're not like I said, they're not low like Legends and Lattes, but they're not like The Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings or something. It's not like world-ending stakes. But, it's so much fun. This is a fun series, a fun dynamic with the main characters, and So this is a palate cleanser for me. This is close to a palate cleanser. Like that's my definition of palate cleanser. Something that's still fantasy, but a little more fun. But like I said, I did like Legends and Lattes, but it's not my go-to as far as palate cleansers go. Because, I want something more going on than just, they're trying to open a coffee shop and, oh, someone's trying to steal her good luck charm. Okay, and then we have green bean casserole. I actually like green beans, but it depends on how they're cooked. And I think I guess I can kind of understand why she would say it looks gross. But I sent my comment to the 3-year-old video that I disagree with her on that. I don't think it's gross. But there are a few other foods that I'm sure people would find gross, but I really like it. Although it's funny that, I think a lot of kids are not. If something looks green, then they're going to be iffy about it. But, so like I said, it looks gross, but it tastes great. And now, this is a book that is... I had to think about this one and get creative with this one. But I chose it and Stephen King because he's a horror writer. He writes mostly horror, but he doesn't just write horror. He's written some like the Dark Tower series is more fantasy. He's written some thrillers and detective stories. He's written some stories that have horror in it and fantastical elements, but they're also about some deeper, darker topics. Like there's Pet Sematary, yes, there's horror in it, and Lucy's Story and Bag of Bones, those all have horror elements, but they're also about grief and, love and, the relationships between people and their pets. And, but I picked this one because, well, first of all, the monster in the story takes the place of whatever you are afraid of. But there is an infamous scene here that has never been put on screen, thankfully, because people think that would not like that. Especially when you're dealing with kids, they will never touch the scene in the book. That just, for some people, that's just they can't do it. That takes their love of the book down by a star. This one infamous scene that involves the kids doing something that's a little too mature for them. And it's not even it comes after the big epic battle with the monster. And it's just, and Stephen King, he does have things in his stories content that just people are like, I don't know about Stephen King. Like, and a lot of content that was like, dude, why did you put it in there? Why did you put it in there? Now, of course, in this case, his excuse is that he was getting high at the time. And when he was addicted to cocaine. So that's why he put in there. And there are books he says he doesn't remember writing or what happened in those books in the first place. But, yeah, just Stephen King puts a lot of gross content in his books. And a lot of characters that are really gross. And not in a grotesque... I mean, there's body horror, but sometimes it's not just body horror or people, it's also people being humans being monsters and being pigs. And and the monster in this eats people and is capable of eating people. But yeah, so I picked this one because of that one scene, but also all his books have gross stuff in it. Granted, it is horror. Horror is often going to have gross content in it because they're using it to make a point. And to, use it as a metaphor. But yeah, so this is really the best I can do because there might have been a book that some people would argue is an ugly cover. There's nothing that has really inappropriate stuff I guess, yeah, this is inappropriate. It was Stephen King was probably the one author that I have a lot of gross content. Although Anne Rice, sometimes some of her content is a little, she wrote the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, did some stuff that I was not comfortable with in that one, but I have not finished, or the book of hers that I have finished, I don't have it anymore. So yeah, this is my answer. Stephen King, particularly an infamous scene in It. Okay, so then we have a comfort, the stuffing. Which my mom does rice stuffing, actually. She doesn't do the cornbread stuffing. She does the rice stuffing. Which I always had a moment yesterday where, like, my coworker that I was bagging for, he was like, Jeremy, said, I don't know why people don't do the cornbread stuffing. They're doing it wrong if they're not doing that stuffing. And see, I'm like, I know he's just joking and being, and he's just trying to express that he likes this kind of stuffing. He thinks this is the best. But that kind of irks me a little when people say, well, you're not doing it right if you don't do it this way, or if you don't eat this. I hope I've never said that to people, because, like, I try not to say that, because just because you don't do it the way I do it, or eat what I eat, does not mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you have a preference for that, or that's what you grew up with. So yeah, that kind of is a pet peeve of mine. But I didn't say anything or anything, because I'm not gonna, but because I know at the end it's kind of just silly. But this is a comfort read, so that brings you. And I picked The Hobbit by Tolkien. This is the only book. Well, I have listened to The Lord of the Rings on audio, so I have consumed the story. I just haven't physically read Lord of the Rings. But I said The Hobbit. This was originally a kid's book, and I did get it for my nephews and niece, and they absolutely loved it. Made me very happy. This is an adventure, and this is a quest story, but it's very easy to read, and it's so much fun. This little hobbit goes on his first adventure leaving home. He's used to the comforts, used to stay in his own little hobbit hole with all his things, and he just doesn't like, and he's been recruited to go on this quest to help these dwarves get their homeland back, and also get this special gem that the creature who stole their homeland, he has the gem, and they at least want the gem back. If they can't get their mountain homeland back, then they can at least get the gem. So he has to go help them with that, and he doesn't want to, but he's convinced, because a part of him longs for adventure. And so it's funny. The dwarves are great. It's lighthearted, despite the encounter with the dragons, and it's still the same basic story, but the movie does make it a little darker of a story. A lot more going on. I know a lot of people, because this is originally a kid's story, and as you can see, it's not so long. There need to be 3 movies, and it was probably cash grab because the original trilogy did so well. So it's like, make the Hobbit trilogy too. And I always say, make the case of, well, Peter Jackson also had to please a bigger audience, not just the original fans of the book series, but a large group of fans, not just. So I think this book needs to be a little bit bigger than what it is. The adaptation needs to be a little bit bigger than what it originally was. But either way, it's such a comfort, such a fun read, so fun. I love the dwarves. And, I like a lot of us, especially a lot of us readers, can relate to Bilbo, and we kind of want adventure, but we also like the comforts of our own home. So, yeah. And I have read this 3 times, I think, and I just love it. Okay, so then we have guilty pleasure, and I could not think of an answer for this one. Because I don't understand the whole guilty pleasure thing. I don't understand because I don't feel guilty about reading any of my books. I don't read books that are out of my, that I secretly read, that I'm like, that I wouldn't want to share with people. I probably have guilty pleasure movies and TV shows. Like, I would say watching Hallmark movies around Christmas time could potentially be a guilty pleasure, because they're so cheesy and predictable, and even my dad and I like to make fun of them all the time because he enjoys them too, but they're cozy and comforting and happy movies. How they're gonna end. They're always gonna. And for me, the only time I can really watch them is during Christmas time. Sound of Music, maybe that could be considered a guilty pleasure, because that one is a little bit sentimental, and apparently the stage show was more saccharine than the movie, and that's why they made the movie, especially with Christopher Plummer made sure that movie was not saccharine like the play was. So it's easier for me to come up with ones that can be argued, movies that could be argued as a guilty pleasure, or TV shows. But then I feel like that's kind of an insult to the stories if you're calling them guilty pleasures, because then you like, do you feel bad for enjoying those stories? I don't know. I'm one of those people who just does not like it. I mean, sometimes I'm dismissive and like, that's oh, okay. But I like, maybe there are some, but I don't, I could not think of an answer for this one. Okay, so I skipped that one. But if you guys come up with, if anyone you do this tag and want to come up with a guilty pleasure, can think of a book that you think would be considered a guilty pleasure, then. But I don't have an answer for it. Okay, so, and that is the prompt. The prompt for that one was pies and desserts. So all the sweet treats that you squeeze in after the big meal. Okay, veggie tray just for looks. And I picked Plato's The Republic. I've been wanting to read this. This purchase was inspired by my uncle, who said he thought I should read it. And I want to read it, but I'm really apprehensive about it. And I attempted a philosophy class in college. Did not go well. I mean, I liked how we talked about the Matrix in that class. We started the class by talking about that, but I just was not good at that class. And I think philosophy is something that I would do better talking to someone one-on-one. Like, taking a whole class where I don't get one-on-one attention, I don't think is good for me as far as a subject like philosophy. And I want to try it. I do want to try to read it, but I don't know if that will happen. So this is just for looks to say, oh, I have a philosophy book. Although it would be, like I said, it would be kind of nice to be able to tell someone, I read The Republic by Plato. Kind of, be able to, and be able to, and part of me would love to discuss it with someone, but I'm just worried I won't be able to understand it. But, I would love to talk to my dad about this. I think it'd be, or, like I said, it was my uncle who recommended it, so maybe talk to him about it if he has time. But yeah, it's one of these ones where you want to say you've read it and discuss it, but then it just is so intimidating and you think that you're not going to be able to understand it. So that's my answer for the veggie tray, just for looks. Okay, I'm starting to forget to mention what the prompts, but okay, so The Leftovers, better on reread. Let's see, which book did I pick for that one? Oh, did I? Okay. Oh, crap, I forgot to grab it. I just, so The Leftovers, the one I picked was Jane Eyre. I forgot to grab my copy, which I really like my copy because it looks Tim Burton-esque with the art on the cover. I'd love to give the Wuthering Heights one version of that. I am tempted to buy it at some point. But anyway, so I've read this one 3 times now. I mean, you could also say that, that it's the famous Fitzgerald book. I cannot think of it. I'm drawing a blank here on the name. Oh, The Great Gatsby. That's another one that I probably would say for this too. Although I have since let go and moved on from that one. But anyway, I still have Jane Eyre. I absolutely love the story. And I've definitely feel differently about it than when I did the first time I read it when I was 16. I mean, say what you want about Rochester, but Jane's journey is so great. She becomes such a strong person and so confident. She's so secure in who she is and what her beliefs are. And I love her journey. Like, the love story you could criticize because, I mean, the dude lies to her and I, in case you haven't read, probably shouldn't talk anymore, but, I admire Jane. I really enjoy rereading. I've enjoyed rereading this book, and I have not reread it in a while. I need to reread it. Maybe I should reread in December. I keep saying that I'll reread it again, and it's been 2 years since my last reread, so I want to reread it. Maybe, like I said, maybe that should be a December read. But there's so many interesting dynamics in that story, including the romance, and it's like, I mean, it's not as toxic as, well, like, yeah, I think it's a little bit better than Emily's Wuthering Heights, which, by the way, that is not a romance. I agree with all those people who are kind of pissed that, the latest adaptation, I mean, nothing against Margot Robbie, I think she's pretty good, I think she's a great actress, but they're trying to make out the movie as a romance, and it's like, it's not a romance. You're encouraging people to think that this toxic relationship is a romance. It's not. Stop doing it. But that's Hollywood for you. I will defend them sometimes, but there are times when I won't defend them. But anyway, okay, so yeah, I think even greater on a reread is Jane Eyre. I did think about sharing, like, I'm currently rereading, I haven't picked it up in months, but I already started a reread of Noli Me Chen, Touch Me Not. I want to be able to pronounce the title in its native language, but I'm just going to say it's Touch Me Not by, I already forgot his name. He's a very famous person, at least the Philippines he's famous. Jose Rizal. But I haven't finished it yet, so I can't really count it as it. I've only reread it once, so. Oh, and A Tale of Two Cities. I should have said A Tale of Two Cities. That's another great classic that I've reread more than once, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, that's, as far as secondary characters, they're not great in that Dickens novel, but Sidney Carton and Madame Defarge are brilliant characters. And it really looks at what was going on between, like, the war between France and England and the two sides. But yeah, I would also read, I also think that was a great on a reread too. Okay, so then The Long-Winded Uncle. Do I have one? Oh, that's our one that I had trouble coming up with the answer, so I said I don't have one. A book that, like, this is basically a book that I think the Madison Goodyear meant this as a book that you felt like took too long. I mean, yeah, I don't have one. I mean, I'm about Wheel of Time because I did DNF the series, but I don't, even though I was reading it at the time, it wasn't that bad. I didn't feel like it was that long, but like I said, I just wasn't motivated to pick it up and read it. And it had been so long since I finished book 3 and picked up book 4, so. Okay, and then we have number 11 is, I have to go back up, family drama, plot twists and turns, and this one does have some family drama than my answer, but okay. That is a Game of Thrones, which is what the show is called, but the series is A Song of Ice and Fire, and this is the first book. So much was going on, you didn't know what was going to happen, who was going to survive. So many characters got killed off and you didn't expect it. I mean, sometimes I think people think it's more for shock value. But yeah, I mean, even the ending, when you first read this book series and you just did not see that coming, the ending. I mean, now people know, and it's no longer a shock for a lot of people. I mean, that's the same thing with, The Sixth Sense, where the ending is, that movie is known for its ending, but now people know what the ending is, and it's like, even if you haven't watched the movie, you know the ending of The Sixth Sense, but at the time it was very shocking, and I think the same thing with this series, and like so much drama, and you don't know who's gonna make it out of this world alive. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't, like, this is not a pretty world. This is not just a wholesome world, or a world that you think, yeah, there's gonna be danger, but everyone's gonna make it out alive, or, you have characters have plot armor, and it's such a fun series. It's very grimdark. I think this is what, inspired some of the authors today. And, like, some of the others write, like, grimdark now. And there was a lot of family drama in this too, so it could apply to the last question, and like especially with the Starks versus the Lannisters, that whole tension and that whole drama. And actually, he was inspired by War of the Roses, which I am reading. Not the War of the not. I haven't got to Dan Jones's book on the War of the Roses. There's a different book that comes before it that people recommend you read first, The Plantagenets, and then get to War of the Roses. It is a nonfiction. Now I know there's a Con Igudin. I never know how to say his last name. He wrote a War of the Roses books, fiction. That I now want to pick it up because I think that was the one by him that I had a copy of it, but then I decided I'm not interested anymore, so I gave it back. Now I want to rebuy it, and get back into that. But I'll wait until after I've read Dan Jones's nonfiction on it. But anyway, but yeah, there's so much was going on in this book, so many crazy things were happening in this world, in the story, and you don't know who's going to come out on top within this world. And it's just this series is so much fun. I know people take issue, especially because George R. R. Martin has not written the last two books. People are really frustrated. But yeah, this series is great, and like I said, a lot of great twists and turns in this series. Okay, and then the last question is holiday planning, anticipated reads for 2026. And I picked Catabasis or Catabasis. I don't know what is the correct way to say that. I've heard it said both ways. This is R.F. Kuang's take on Dante's Divine Comedy. It's this. All I know about it so far is that, and the fact that it's this young college student, and I think it's at Cambridge. I was thinking it was at Oxford, like Babel was, but no, I think it's at Cambridge, and she needs this particular professor to talk to him about to get something from him, but turns out that she accidentally sends him to hell, and her and another student have to go through hell and get their professor back. I know a lot of people don't love it. The book has received some criticisms, but I still want to buy it, or it's on my Amazon wish list. And I am still very excited, which it makes that really hard because you still really want to get it and you're still excited for it. But then you hear other people talking about it, and there is a little bit of should I take it off my list, or is before it's too late? But then I'm fresh because I still want to I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it because I want to read it, I want to love it, I want to buy it, or have someone buy it for me as a gift. I don't care. Because so far I've loved her books. I know a lot of people don't love everything she's written, but so far I've loved, I loved the Poppy War trilogy. I loved all three of those books. I know not everyone loves it. I know that some people have criticized, her take on the military and everything, and it doesn't make sense. It's not authentic or something like that. It's not realistic. And I know there are complaints about Yellowface and how it was repetitive at times, but I loved it. I also listened to that one on audiobook. I really enjoyed Babel. I think Babel's the only one that I haven't heard too much criticism of it. But there probably is some, because there's no way every single person that's read her books loves that one. Considering all for her trilogy and then Yellowface have all gotten criticism. But yeah, I'm still excited. It is still on my wish list, and I'm definitely anticipating it, along with King's Sorrow. That's another one I'm anticipating. It is out, but like I said, I try not to buy hardbacks too often, but both of those books are on my wish list. Which I have told my mom, so she's probably wondering, why are you asking for those books now? When they're so big. But I have no patience. I am not very patient. but King Sorrow is Joe Hill's book, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited for that one as well. And if Mike from Mike's Book Review says that one is great, then I'm going to trust his judgment. So those are my 2 anticipated releases. They're both out already, but I haven't got them yet. Because it's either ask for them as gifts, or I'm going to wait until they come out in paperback. That's my rule for myself. My loose rule for myself. But anyway. So those are my questions for the Thanksgiving book tag. So consider yourself tagged if you want to do this in the spirit of the holiday. Also, of course, I mean, and even if you don't want to, even if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, maybe you'll want to do, maybe you won't. But, and like I said, I will post a link to the person who created this tag in the description box below in case you want to, double check in to confirm, watch her take on it. And I said, sorry, some of those questions I couldn't give you guys an answer, but so if you like this, I hope you guys like this video, and I hope you are enjoying your reading right now. And again, I'm gonna say, just as I said the last one, Happy Thanksgiving, which if you are in the US. And I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.